to Mama Mystery. Today, we are finally talking about the Casey Anthony case. This is a case I followed extensively when it was actively going on, and I've brought this case up a lot in my past episodes, and I got a ton of feedback from listeners who said I should make an episode about this case. Most people who follow true crime are well aware of this story, but believe it or not, I am marrying someone next month who doesn't really care for true crime and is not aware of this case.
Hello, everybody.
I brought him in to join me on this episode while I tell him all about the monster that is Casey Anthony. So welcome, my fiancé, Austin.
Hello, everybody.
Are you excited?
I am. I listen to these podcasts on my walk every night, and Kelly's made me like true crime more than I've ever liked it.
So tell me what you do know about Casey Anthony, if anything.
So really all I know is that she was crazy, killed a baby. And did she kill a baby with hangers?
What? No.
Okay, I don't know. I thought, didn't somebody kill somebody with hangers
like
or something?
maybe in a movie.
This is awful.
I think that's Mommy Dearest, which would be fitting for her.
I know that she killed some kid, and there was evidence stacked against her, but she...
Don't give away too much.
But I don't know anything else besides that. And I have a buddy that thinks she's like the hottest thing in the world.
Oh my God, which is so disappointing. And we're not even going to name that person.
We'll keep his name off this. We'd have to beep it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, he thinks she's super hot. So.
Super hot. That really just makes absolutely no sense in my mind. How anybody could look at a picture of her and think she's hot. Maybe I'm the only one. Maybe there are people out there who think that she's attractive. I don't know. Like in the documentaries that I've watched of her, people do comment on how this was such a sensational case because she was this attractive mom. But after I watched so many interviews with her and just knowing deep down into my core what she did to her daughter and how manipulative and...
Well, I don't think a lot of people are looking at her personality, but I didn't think the pictures you showed me were that impressive. Anyways.
Well, I hope you're not just saying that because I'm sitting here, but...
I didn't.
Okay, good. Okay, well, this is one of the most confounding cases I've ever come across. I remember this case so vividly because when I was in college, I watched a lot of Nancy Grace.
Shocker. Kelly watches, just so everybody knows, Kelly spends time watching meth documentaries, trash TV, Love After Lockup.
You're just saying that because that's what I've been watching today.
Murder shows, 5,000 Pound Life.
600
pound life.
Yeah, nobody can sustain a 5,000 pound lifestyle.
It is rough. But anyways, yeah, Kelly watches all the trash TV you can imagine. So her watching Nancy Grace for hours on end is not a surprise.
While I was in college, everyone else is out at the Hawk and, being normal college students. And that's the way I choose to spend my time. And I realized that's super cool. I remember I was living alone and I remember I would have nightmares. And I was like, man, why am I having such awful nightmares? And it's because I was falling asleep listening to Nancy Grace. That's why.
Not surprised.
I had to shut her off. So, Nancy Grace labeled Casey Anthony the top mom.
Isn't Nancy Grace kind of like a psycho, though?
I mean, she's a little wild, yeah. She's
got loud opinions.
She's very loud, and she's very repetitive.
I remember her in the movie. What's the movie?
Oh, Gone Girl?
Gone Girl.
Yeah, Gone Girl is kind of like a depiction of the Scott and Lacey Peterson case. And I feel like it really closely resembled that whole story, except if you've seen Gone Girl, the main plot twist, is not in relation to the Peterson case. But there was an outspoken blonde news reporter that...
Is that her on there?
No, it's not her, but it's supposed to resemble her, so...
They don't sit down with Nancy Grace in that movie?
No, they don't, no. She just was an actress.
Anyways, okay, yeah.
Oh, boy. So anyway, she labeled Casey Anthony the tot mom, and she covered her literally every single night.
The what mom?
The tot mom.
Tot?
Tot, because her daughter was a toddler.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's clever.
It was the same stuff every night, but I was hooked. I'm not even sure what drew me into the case, if it was Nancy's over-the-top commentary or Casey's stone-cold narcissism, or maybe both, but locals from the area literally swarmed their home, spewing threats and insults at the entire Anthony family. Fights broke out. Children were even brought to the Anthony home to witness all this chaos. It was absolutely insane. And Casey Anthony soon became the most hated woman in America. I remember exactly where I was the day they announced the verdict, and here we are 10 years later, and this case still gets talked about. I was actually watching The Office the other day. That's another show that you know I love. And there was an episode where Dwight is heading a group of employees to open a Sabre store down in Florida, but he doesn't like the team that he's been given, so he's trying to convince them not to go, and he sets up this conference room to depict life in Florida. He turns the heat up in the room really high. He let out a ton of mosquitoes into the room. And on the walls are pictures of swamps, hurricanes, spring break partiers doing a beer bong from like a huge bong with 8 hoses coming out of it. And then there's a picture of Casey Anthony.
Really?
Yeah. Just another reason to like love that show. You'll never know though because you don't watch that either.
I don't watch enough. If we were around groups of friends we have, everybody would be laughing and joining in.
Except for Austin. Austin would be sitting on the side,
like,
having FOMO. Fear of missing The Office.
That's right.
So Casey grew up with both parents in the home and a brother, Lee. Casey was involved in high school sports, and her parents did make comments that she was a bit of an over-exaggerator and that she seemed comfortable with lying about stupid things. And then when she became pregnant at the age of 19, she tried hiding it from her parents until it was impossible to hide her baby bump.
You can't hide it for very long.
I mean, I don't know how people get away with that. Like, people who say, I didn't know I was pregnant until they go in and, like, have horrible stomach cramps and they pop out a baby. Like, how?
Hiding it from your parents?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. But this just kind of goes to show you what type of person she was. Like, she was just, she would do whatever she could at any cost to hide her lies.
Did she get pregnant as a one-night stand or, like, a relationship?
So, we actually, and I'll talk about this later, but they actually don't know who Kaylee Anthony's dad is. There was like a whole cast of characters that it could have been. Maybe a little bit of a hoe, maybe a little bit of daddy issues.
So is she still out there right now?
She is out and about.
So she could listen to this podcast.
She could. She won't.
If
probably,
you're out there,
but...
Casey, you're a hoe.
Oh my God.
That's horrible.
Austin.
That's too much. Sorry, guys.
Edit that out.
I'm just kidding. Nobody's gonna like be mad at that because everybody hates her, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I just don't know like what kind of language you can use. I guess you can cuss.
On
This isn't YouTube.
Are you allowed to cuss on your podcast?
I think so. I don't see why not.
Shit, we better find out. I think it's your rules.
Okay, if these are my rules, you can cuss a little bit. That's fine.
Hell yes. There could be moms listening in the car though.
They'll relate. The kind of moms that I relate to most are the kinds who like listen to Baby Shark and a little bit of Cardi B.
Yeah, but I don't think they're gonna be listening to killer podcasts with their kids in the car.
Well, no, of course not.
So probably say whatever the fuck.
They're not going to listen to Cardi B in the car either, I would think. I mean, I don't know. Some parents are different. Okay, let's get back on track. Okay, so Kaylee Marie Anthony was born on August 9th, 2005 in Orlando, Florida to Casey, who was 19 at the time. And I want to note that after she had Kaylee, the first person to hold Kaylee was actually Cindy, not even Casey. It was Cindy. Cindy is Casey's mom. So Casey's parents are Cindy and George Anthony, and they become huge characters in this whole story. But Cindy was the first person to hold Kaylee. And I feel like this is worth noting because I feel like this is the start of Casey's like desperation for her parents' attention. And so if she ever felt like Kaylee was getting more attention than Casey was, I feel like that might offer a little bit of motive as to why she would want Kaylee gone. But I don't know. I mean, I'm just kind of reaching. I just think it's important to note, though. So they ended up living with Casey's parents, and the family totally doted on little Kaylee. Kaylee loved to swim and swam frequently in their pool. And her bedroom was like this entire Winnie the Pooh theme. You could see that her closet was jam-packed full of clothes, and it looked like they were all on like the store hangers. So just by looking at that, I feel like people were probably buying Kaylee gifts all the time. Like her parents were probably out buying her stuff all the time. So I just feel like they totally, it's just important to note that they totally doted on Kaylee. So maybe Casey got jealous of that. I don't know. But Casey was dating someone at the time that Kaylee was born. His name was Jesse, and they told him that Kaylee was his daughter. However, a DNA test confirmed that he was actually not the father. However, he still wanted to be involved in Kaylee's life, which was very noble of him, but Casey inevitably broke things off with him and began dating someone different.
This was before the whole
This is before everything happened. Yeah. This is before things went down.
So he's still in her life?
Who? Jesse?
Yeah.
No, they dated while Kaylee was alive, but Casey admitted, or no, I guess they took a DNA test, and Jesse found out that Kaylee was not in fact his daughter, and then Casey ended up breaking up with him anyway. So he's gone.
He wasn't around through the like death.
No. No, Casey started dating someone new, but we'll get to that in a second. And there were other contenders to Kaylee's paternity, but 2 of them had actually passed away in separate car accidents. And to this day, Kaylee's father is still unknown. We still don't know who Kaylee's actual father is.
That's weird.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess she was maybe a little bit of a hoe.
Yeah.
So in May of 2008... Casey started dating a new guy, Tony Lazzaro. So this is her boyfriend throughout everything, okay? Tony Lazzaro. She would hang out at his apartment frequently and would sometimes bring Kaylee with her to his apartment. His roommates described her as an adorable, polite, confident, fun-loving little girl, and they would describe Casey as a loving mom and never reported incidents of mistreatment. When Kaylee stopped coming around, one of the roommates asked where she'd been, and Casey would say, she's with my nanny or she's with my mom, but never gave the roommates any reason not to believe her. So when they heard that she had been missing for 31 days later in this story, they were shocked because they never let on to any trouble brewing. So this is where everything begins, okay? July 15th, 2008. At 8:09, there were 3 calls made to 911, starting with allegations of theft. Cindy called asking where she needed to bring her daughter Casey in order to press charges on her for stealing her car. And she also alleged that Casey was stealing from her and had bank statements to prove it. This is all within the first phone call. And what ended up happening was Casey was driving around her car that was titled in her parents' name. And she hadn't been coming home, and even if she did come home, she would just tell them she was going to work at her job at Universal Studios, and then they just never really saw much of her, and they didn't see Kaylee either. But according to them, Kaylee was either with Casey at Tony's house or was with the nanny.
And how old is Casey at this time?
I think she's probably 22, 23.
Okay. And full-time job, like an adult.
Yeah, that's what she's telling them, yes. So then Casey leaves the car, abandons the car, and the car gets towed. Well, since the car is titled in Casey's parents' name, the letter notifying them of the car being impounded goes to their home. So when Casey's parents get that letter, they flip out, they go over to Tony Lazzaro's home, grab Casey, bring her home, and they're like, what the hell's going on? Like, so that's why they called 911 to report the theft of the car, because they've just like had it with Casey. Then at 8:44 that night, Cindy calls back to say there's a possible missing child because she hasn't seen her granddaughter in over a month. She also told the operator that she hadn't seen Casey in a month either, but finally found her, just not with Kaylee. And then the third call comes in at 9:41, an hour later, and it's Cindy again. She's hysterical, saying that Kaylee is missing and that Casey said she's been, quote, taken, and that Casey has been trying to find her. Then Cindy says to the operator, there's something wrong. I found my daughter's car today, and it smells like there's been a dead body in the damn car. Then she says, oh my God, she finally admitted the babysitter stole her. So I assume at this point the deputy is on his way, but in the meantime, the operator wants to speak with Casey. In the background, you can hear Cindy hysterically tell George Kaylee is missing and hands the phone over to a stone cold Casey. And she says very matter-of-factly, Casey says, my daughter's been missing for the last 31 days. And she's super calm and matter-of-fact with this information, which to me is just so bizarre. The operator says, who has her? And Casey answers, her name is Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez. She's been the nanny for about 1.5 years, almost 2 years. The operator asks, why are you calling now? Why didn't you call 31 days ago? And Casey responds coldly again. Like, it's almost like she's answering to a boss as to why she hasn't shown up to her job for 31 days. Like, you would not think by the tone of her voice that her child is missing and has been taken. Casey responds, quote, I've been looking for her and going through other resources to find her, which was stupid. Like, that's all she says. Yeah.
Which was stupid?
Yeah, that's what Casey says. She says that to the operator. I've been I've been looking for her and going through other resources to try and find her, which was stupid. Just like, what?
It's already like you're guilty.
Just lacking any sense.
Do you have the call? Can you play the call?
I can, but...
I've been looking for her and have gone through other resources to try to find her, which was stupid.
Since the calls, police...
That's wild.
Yeah. So I don't know how well that came across on the podcast because I was just playing that from my phone.
But you can find it on YouTube.
But you can find it on YouTube, yeah.
That is crazy.
Yeah,
That's
insane.
like from the get, you're already guilty.
Yeah, it's just like, how can you be so nonchalant and have no sense of urgency in your voice that your daughter's missing?
Yeah, that's crazy.
So obviously the thing that struck everyone was the fact that she was gone 31 days and that Casey didn't report her missing. It wasn't until the grandmother reported her missing that authorities finally were able to get involved. So in the beginning, Casey sticks to the story that Zenaida took Kaylee. And she was very detailed in the police report that she made, even offering a full sketch of Zenaida. And then also in the police report, she reiterates the words, "my daughter," over and over, almost as if to remind whoever is reading that she is Kaylee's mother, and mothers would never harm their daughters. But the irony here is that she let 31 days go by while, quote, her daughter was missing. And while she says in the report she spent every day looking for her, even stealing and lying from friends and family in order to find her, the reality is that she actually spent her time quite differently. She was no desperate mother eager to find her child, and I'll get into those details in a little bit. But what are your thoughts? Like, can you imagine how is like her parents, could you look at your daughter and know, I mean,
you don't even, I don't know, it's weird because from listening to your other stories, you don't even, like right now it's already obvious.
Right.
31 days is a freaking
month, an entire month.
Imagine if Jack and Ken were gone for a month.
I can't.
They're gone, chilling. We don't know where they're at. We're trying to look for them still. Like it's just.
And you know, like Cindy and George, Casey's parents, were very involved. So it's not like.
How did they not catch it earlier?
Right. That's kind of what blows me away.
Are they ever in on it
Kaylee
later?
was living there. Kaylee was living there. Her bedroom was at their home.
See, so are they ever? Later in the story, do they ever come in like as like?
Yes, they.
So like they maybe know what's up.
Yeah, George later on becomes kind of a suspect, and the defense kind of uses him as their scapegoat. But I mean, that is just something that makes you think. You know, like sometimes you have grandparents that aren't involved.
Tony
in your kids.
obviously has to be in on it.
I don't know. I mean, I'll kind of get into what he had to say too. Okay. So this is crazy. In an effort to gather more information, deputies took Casey to her place of employment. She told them she was working at Universal Studios, which is also what she told her parents, so that's where she led them. When they got there, the security guard at Universal Studios said, "I'm not finding an employee here by that name. Who is your supervisor?" So Casey spits out some random name, and the security guard says, "I can't find that either." So he asks, "What's your extension?" And she just spits out a number.
What? At what point do you throw in the towel on this one?
I mean,
this is like when I call a Hy-Vee, I'll call a Hy-Vee in the middle
gosh.
of Minnesota or Iowa, and I'll say, "Hey, I'm not going to be in for work tomorrow," and I make up a manager's name and everything. Like,
yeah.
what the hell?
This is how Austin likes to do pranks.
Except you have the feds on you.
We just point that out because you just started saying that. Like,
yeah, whatever. They'll figure it out. So you have the feds on you, and it's a case, and you're just making up. The actual
feds.
Yeah.
They're taking you. I mean, you have the entire car ride there, the entire walk up to the building, and in your mind.
To throw in the towel and say, "Hey, you know what, guys?"
Your mind has to be racing. Like, how the hell am I going to pull this off? I'm just going to cross my fingers and hope for the best. Like.
All I keep thinking about the whole time so far, and we're not even to the crazy parts, is like, this lady's still out there right now.
Yeah.
She could listen to this podcast.
She's still out there, you crazy bitch. If you're listening, just how dare you?
Stop, I don't want to look us up. She's obviously crazy.
She's obviously crazy.
Keep going.
Okay. So they ask, "What's your extension?" She spits out a number. That extension doesn't exist. So at that point, the guard lets them through the gate, and Casey leads them down all these hallways.
What?
She's passing by other employees, waving like emphatically, like she knows them. And people are looking at her passing by like, who? Like, and the feds behind her can see this. Like, the investigators that are walking with her can see the way she's acting, how she's like flamboyantly being like, hey, how are ya? To these people she's like pretending to be co-workers with, and they're looking at her like, I've never seen that person before.
That's so awkward.
How awkward.
Why would they even let her in?
I mean, I guess probably because she had federal investigators with her. So with them having like their, badges, I'm guessing probably a security guard was like, well, you've got these people with you. I mean, sure, I guess do what you need to do. Like, I don't know if he walked with them. I don't know, but I do know
was the goal to go in there and to question other employees about
No, their initial goal was to take her to Universal Studios in hopes that it might prompt some sort of information. It might help her recall
what I mean,
where...
ultimately it was nothing because nobody even knows who she is there.
No, it was all a farce.
Okay.
So she finally ends up leading them down a dead-end hallway because she doesn't know where the hell she's going. And then finally she turns around and says, I don't actually work here.
Oh my gosh. Are you kidding me?
I feel like I'm talking about...
Why didn't you throw in the towel 15
minutes ago? Like our 6-year-old daughter. Like, just somebody who just like lies and then gets caught up in their lies.
Kennedy will have Oreos all over her face. Kennedy, did you eat cookies?
No, see what happened was a raccoon came in. Yeah. My friends, watchers, will get that reference. You won't because you don't watch Friends either.
I don't, keep going.
We don't have any of the same interests. Why are we getting married? Because we love each other very much.
Cut that part out, maybe.
So she finally admits to purposely misleading them. And they take her back to the station and they ask her if she lied on purpose. And she says, yes, she did. So they arrest her. And they charge her on July 16th with child neglect, obstructing an investigation, and lying to the police. So then with Casey in jail, police begin their own investigation, trying to piece together Kaylee's last whereabouts. And they're able to find that on Father's Day, June 15th, Kaylee and Casey visited the Anthony home, and June 16th is the last time Kaylee was seen alive. So 4 days later, on June 20th, okay, so 4 days after she's seen alive by her grandparents, Casey is seen partying at Fusion nightclub in a super low-cut blue dress. That's one of the pictures that I showed you. And she participates in a hot body contest. And she's dancing on bar tops with this huge smile on her face.
If you Google, missing.
With her daughter missing. She has no idea. Nobody knows where her daughter is.
This is already enough. She's guilty. Hang up. We're done. We're done.
You would... Oh, shh.
Come on, Siri. Siri's interrupting the whole damn podcast. Siri thinks she's nuts too.
Okay, so if you Google the pictures of her, she looks like she's having the time of her life. Like, her smile is huge. So over the following month, she's also captured on various security cameras shopping without Kaylee. There's multiple instances where she's seen walking into Target and grabbing a cart, but she's by herself. She also gets a tattoo on her shoulder that says Bella Vita, which is Italian for beautiful life. Now, keep in mind, her story is that Kaylee was abducted by the babysitter, and Casey claims that she spent all this time looking for Kaylee. So why then is she pictured at bars, participating in hot body contests, getting tattoos that say beautiful life? Like, how beautiful is your life if your kid is missing? It makes no sense. So she's just like already painting this really like this huge picture that's going to be really hard to defend, right?
Does she have Keep going.
No, go ahead.
Does she have an attorney?
At this point, no.
Okay. So
but she eventually gets one.
When is this? I want to hear when this is hitting national news and stuff and how it all unfolds.
Yeah, well, this is all the stuff that comes out on national news. And the thing is, this also plays a big part in the case because this is getting broadcast all over national news.
How
Nancy
quick
Grace.
did the national news catch this?
As soon as they declared her a missing child and realized that she had been gone for 31 days, it immediately hit the news. Really? But it wasn't until that phone call to 911 that...
And how long did this whole entire case go on? Like publicly?
A few years. She didn't, I think...
years?
Well, I mean, yeah, the trial didn't start until, I think, 2011.
Oh, good Lord, Jandis.
Hey, we're like halfway through.
Well, no, I'm saying good Lord, Jandis, like, what the hell? How's this lady's... I just keep going.
Yeah, okay.
I just keep saying keep going.
Okay. So, June 27th, Casey abandons the car that is actually titled in her parents' name. June 30th, the car was impounded and a letter was sent to her parents. And then July 15th, 31 days after Kaylee was last seen, Casey's parents recover the car from the impound lot, and that's when they go track her down. So that's kind of the span of time. Like, that's what was going on during those 31 days, okay? So, let's see. As I said before, the parents recall a terrible odor coming from the trunk of the car, and it was what they found in the car that would become 3 key pieces of evidence in the inevitable trial. In the trunk, they found a single strand of Kaylee's hair, the horrendous odor, which... In the trunk, okay? 1 single strand, just 1 though. And then the horrendous odor, and then traces of chloroform. Ooh. So, because of these findings, on October 14th of 2008, a grand jury indicts Casey on the following charges: first-degree murder, aggravated child abuse, aggravated manslaughter of a child, and providing false information to a LEO, law enforcement officer. But at this time, the case is completely circumstantial, as they don't have a body. They still don't know where Kaylee is. They still haven't found her. They don't know where she is. And Casey's not giving them any information that'll lead them in the right direction. She's still claiming that Zenaida, Zanny the nanny, is what she ended up being called, that she's the one who has her. But here's the thing. They went to the apartment. That was another thing. Casey led them to where Zenaida apparently lived. They go in there, and there was nobody in the apartment, and nobody had lived there for months. And then they go to the leasing office, and they say, where does this person live? And they say, we have no tenants here by that name.
So did this lady never come up in the whole case?
So no, it was all a complete lie.
Made-up person.
A made-up person.
Oh my God, I kept waiting for you to say, so then they bring her in for a question. This person doesn't even exist.
No, but there is someone who was named Zenaida Gonzalez who lived like farther away, who had nothing to do with this, but sued Casey for like slandering her name or defamation. Yeah, because like she happened to have the same name that she came up with, and she couldn't get a job. She had absolutely nothing to do with this case. Wasn't even in the same city, like nothing to do with it, but just by luck, or poor luck, I guess, she happened to have the name that Casey just thought up in her head.
So made up name, person, and Universal Studios made up job.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So, as I was saying, this is a completely circumstantial case, as they don't have a body, which is really risky, because that means the prosecution has to prove to a jury without a shadow of a doubt that Casey killed Kaylee with intent. But how can they do that without a body? It was just a risk they were willing to take. That is, until Kaylee's body was finally found 2 months later in December, when a meter reader stopped along the side of the road to urinate in the woods and discovered a small human skull.
No way.
Yeah.
Man, if you guys could see me, my jaw just dropped. That's nuts.
Yeah. And that part gets even...
How much later?
That was in December, so it was 6 months after she went missing.
6 months after she went missing. Well, yeah, 6 months after she went missing, 5 months from the phone call.
Yeah, and she was found just outside the radius of their home. So, like, police will typically search a radius around the missing person's home, mm-hmm. and it was just outside of that radius that she happened to be found, in, like, a swampy area off the side of a highway.
So... I had a yawn. So the what was I gonna say? Was it just the skull?
Yeah. So her skull and other remains were kind of found like scattered around, but she was located like within a trash bag, within another trash bag, within a laundry bag, and it was like, and her skull had duct tape over it.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So was it still being covered by the news? Was their attorney defending her?
Oh yeah, I remember the day this came out, like when they found the remains,
so
and they thought, drop her? No.
Okay.
At this point, I think she already had her attorney Jose Baez, but
isn't he a big?
Yeah, he's big time now. I think this was like his breakthrough. Yeah, was this case?
Shit, he got her off innocent.
Jeez, but anyway.
That cost her, Jesus.
Well, apparently it cost her sexual favors, actually, because there's like rumors, I guess, from like bounty hunters that happen to work on this case or whatever, private investigators who said that they would walk in and find her doing like sexual favors to Jose Baez, and it was apparently like her way of payment because she had no money.
He surely got paid money, right?
Yeah, this is a whole like side note, and that's just hearsay.
Did he get
so we
paid
don't
money also?
I mean, I don't know. I'm assuming he probably got paid something.
Jose, if you're out there, inbox Kelly.
Why? What? Excuse me.
No, not like to tell. I want to know facts for the show.
Oh,
Good Lord,
God.
Jandis.
No.
Go ahead with
This is going so south. Oh, man. Never again.
Rabbit trail.
Okay. Anyway, at this point, Kaylee's remains were impossible to identify without DNA as they were totally skeletonized. They had been there for like 6 months in the swamp, okay? Like a hurricane had come through. So obviously she's just, it's awful. All that remained were bones with hair surrounding the skull and a piece of duct tape over the mouth area of the skull. And Kaylee's body was literally found minutes from the Anthony home. But here's a crazy fact. Roy Kronk was the meter reader who found Kaylee's remains, and he actually reported on the remains back in August. Okay, 2 months after she went missing. On August 11th, he found a suspicious-looking trash bag and alerted authorities, but nothing ever came of it. So he was this meter reader, and all of these meter readers knew of like certain places they could go to urinate off just the side of the road, like private areas with woods and stuff, so they wouldn't be seen. And he stopped in this area to pee, saw this suspicious-looking trash bag,
reported it, didn't look
called 911, and he even said, like, I know this whole Casey Anthony thing is going on. Kaylee Anthony, I know this girl's missing. I'm not saying it has anything to do with that, but just in case, I thought I'd give you guys a heads up. Nobody ever came, okay? Then it was reported that the area was already searched, so the responding officer that day didn't look any further. So he calls again, okay? He actually ends up calling 3 times. The third time he calls on August 13th, okay? He calls on the 11th, the 12th, and the 13th. And he offers at this point to meet with the police officer because he keeps going out there and Roy keeps seeing the bag. So he's like, what the hell?
Can he see the skull?
No, he only sees the bag. So at this point, he calls offering to meet with the police officer because Roy believes it could be related to the missing toddler. The deputy who met him out there began walking out there, slipped and fell, and just decided, F this, I'm not going out any further. And then the deputy proceeded to berate Roy for wasting his time and left.
No way.
Yeah, that officer was eventually fired for negligence. But just imagine all the evidence that could have been intact had authorities actually done their job, because by December, all that was left was bones and very little forensic evidence. But can you imagine how different this story would have turned out? I mean, he freaking saw the bag. Like, that part just blows my mind.
That would have been within a month.
Yeah. Within 2 months. Well, yeah, within a month of her being reported, but within 2 months of, yeah. So, I mean, who knows what they could have been able to find. So anyway, it wasn't until he was back in that same spot in December that he actually took it upon himself to use his meter reader stick to prod the bag. And that's when he found the skull.
Gosh, it's nuts.
Yeah. So fast forward to the trial. The prosecution's argument rested heavily on the odor in the trunk, the hair found in the trunk, and the chloroform that was found in the trunk. Their theory was that Casey used chloroform to kill Kaylee, then put her in the trunk before dumping her body somewhere else. So let's go through these pieces of evidence used by the prosecution. Chloroform. Do you know what chloroform is? Yeah, so those of you who don't know, chloroform is a deadly chemical that's been used in the past to put someone to sleep, but it can be fatal if it's used in high doses. So when the police searched the family's home, they took the computer and found in the computer's search history terms...
Chloroform ingredients or some shit.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Chloroform, quote, alcohol, quote, acetone, which are the ingredients in chloroform, how to make chloroform, and even neck breaking. So they tied together the traces of chloroform and the search history to come up with a theory that Casey killed Kaylee with chloroform. I know, it's horrible. And then this didn't come up until after the trial, but apparently the person who searched the family computer was either in training or was like a novice at it, because I guess they only searched like one of the hard drives or something, like without going deeper. And they missed a search that was conducted on that family computer that was foolproof suffocation. Someone in the home searched foolproof suffocation, but that never came up through the trial because whoever it was that conducted the search on their hard drive never found that until later. Yeah. So this may have been one of the biggest mistakes made by the prosecution because they really stuck to this theory rather than offer other possibilities of how Casey could have killed Kaylee. Casey never graduated from high school, so the idea that she could just whip up some chloroform in her home is a bit of a stretch. And the process of making chloroform does include the ingredients that she searched for, but you have to distill this solution in order to actually use it. And distilling is a very complicated process that requires special tools that aren't just found in anybody's home. So let's talk about the odor in the trunk, okay? Cindy calls and said, it smells like there's been a dead body in the damn car. Decomposing bodies have a very unique scent. And even though cadaver dogs hit on the car for the smell of decomposition, the defense argued that Casey had put garbage in the trunk and that she totally forgot it was there. And even Casey's mom, Cindy, who originally made the comment that it seems like there's been, or that it smells like there's been a dead body in the damn car, argued in Casey's defense, her mom said that there was a pizza in the trunk rotting. But if that's the case, why would dogs hit on the trunk for the smell of decomposition? Can cadaver dogs decipher the difference between rotten garbage that might contain decomposing animal product like beef or pepperoni and a rotting human body? Like, that was a question that they came up with. So in an experiment done with a trained cadaver dog, a dog was put in a car lot and 3 of the cars in the lot contained various types of decomposition. I just think this is interesting, which is why I'm including it. But one car had just trash. One had animal decomposition, and the third was human decomposition. And without fail, the dog only alerted to the car with human decomposition. Their noses, I guess, are just so finely tuned to detect human decomp that there is little room for error here. So the fact that the dogs hit on Casey's trunk,
telltale.
I mean, yeah, but apparently it's not like a foolproof science. And sometimes you can get false positives because, let's say, in this case, Casey put Kaylee's body in the trunk of the car and then moved it. Well, that body still left like a picture or like a frame, a scent frame in that trunk. So the dogs hit on it even though there wasn't a body there. So they consider that a false positive just because her body's not still there.
That's crazy.
Which I think is bullshit. I mean, at what point do you just say, like, let's have some common sense here? Like, not everything has to be explained 100% by science. At some point we have to use our common sense.
Logic.
Yes.
So what was the argument against the hair in the trunk?
So the hair in the trunk that belonged to Kaylee. So when a body dies, hair undergoes a process called post-mortem banding, which essentially marks the hair after someone dies. When someone dies and the decomposition process begins, it leaves a dark band on the hair near the root, and it usually takes 2 to 3 days for this to occur. The hair that they found in Casey's trunk did contain that banding, and it did belong to Kaylee. However, the defense argued that this isn't an exact science either, and that sometimes the pH levels in unique conditions can affect someone's hair in a similar way. So like, water, if you go swimming, I guess, sometimes it can produce a similar effect. But again, like, are we just ridding ourselves of common sense here? Like,
so what was the argument against the search history?
So the argument against that was that Cindy Anthony made those searches, that she was actually trying to search chlorophyll because she had some plant that was dying in her house, and she was trying to find, yeah.
So this is where that foolproof suffocation, if it would have been found sooner.
Yes, could have been
big.
Really big. And then the argument on the search containing neck breaking was that Cindy Anthony came upon some video, like one of those fail videos of skateboarders falling and getting hurt.
You just want to check it out. I got you, Cindy. I feel you, Cindy. If you're out there and you watch this, I get that.
But here's the other thing. The prosecuting attorney was able to point out that Casey is the only person who could have made those searches because Cindy would have been at work at the time the searches were made.
Look,
but
here's the video I watched. Skateboarding fail video.
I can't imagine that. Like, if my daughter was being accused of killing my granddaughter, and like, I just can't wrap my head around that. Like, how can you defend your daughter in that?
What was the defense against the chloroform in the trunk?
What do you mean?
What was their reasoning against the
the
traces
defense?
of the chloroform in the trunk?
That it was left by the trash. It was just
from trash.
No, but they brought in this scientist that tried to do. The prosecuting attorneys brought in a scientist that was able to do these air testing samples, and all the defense did was just kind of question his credibility. So the defense, all they had to do here was place seeds of doubt in the jury. That's all they had to do.
Does the jury ultimately decide 100%?
Yes.
100%.
100%. It's up to the jury.
So in order to prove her guilty or not guilty, it has to be 100% of the jury
unanimous.
Agrees that she's guilty.
Yes, it has to be a unanimous vote.
Unanimous to me would mean 9 out of 10. You're saying it has to be 100%.
Unanimous is 10 out of 10. If there are 10 jurors, all 10 have to agree that she is guilty or not guilty.
So are you allowed to tell me yet how many said what?
Well, they all agreed. I'll get to that point.
Okay.
But here's the thing: even if one person with common sense could have said, I don't know, this just doesn't sit well with me. I very strongly believe she did it. I can't say one way or the other. Then that would be a hung jury. It would be a mistrial, and they'd have to retry her. It happens all the time. So that's what blows me away.
How many trials were they on this?
One and done.
In all 10, how many is there?
I don't know. Probably, I don't know. Let's say there's 10.
But so say there's 10. All 10 of them agreed that she was
not guilty.
Not guilty.
Yeah.
What?
I mean, it's well known by now. The jury, decided she was not guilty.
All of the jury.
Despite all this evidence, yes.
I don't understand that.
Yeah, well, here's what happened. The defense, all they had to do was prove, the defense, all they had to do was place a seed of doubt in the jurors' minds because...
So they didn't have to necessarily think she wasn't guilty. They just had to say, we can't say she's guilty.
Yes, because here's
So there was probably some jurors that were sitting there going, I don't know, I don't want to make her guilty because I'm not 100% sure.
Yes, because they drove it home that if you even strongly believe that Kaylee did it, or that Casey did it. See, I keep messing up their names. Yeah. Even if you strongly believe Casey did it, you have to return a verdict of not guilty, because the only way you can deliver a verdict of guilty is if you 100% believe to your core, to your bones, that she did it.
But I believe that. You believe that.
I know.
I think everybody listening probably believes that.
Right, but here's the problem. The defense couldn't prove that Casey did do it because they couldn't prove that George didn't do it or that Cindy didn't do it. Or that Tony Lazzaro couldn't do it.
Else. So that she was murdered, but they said it could have not been Casey, guys.
Yeah, so the defense, when they come in, they start saying that...
So when they're saying Cindy did the searches, now some of the jurors are going, maybe Cindy killed her.
Yeah. Well, no. Well, I mean, not Cindy, but George. Yeah. Whatever. So the defense went in on Casey's dad. They accused him. In their opening arguments, they accused him of sexual abuse towards Casey, beginning at a very young age. And this came out of nowhere. They were very graphic in their depiction of Casey's childhood. And to say this came out of left field doesn't even do it justice. The defense was reaching beyond belief to paint absolutely anyone else as the responsible party other than Casey. So this is just another heartbreaking blow to the Anthony family. And the fact that Casey sat there and allowed her attorney to just bash her own dad and say that he was essentially responsible for Kaylee's death. And not only that, but also he was a pedophile is sickening. That she would allow that to happen to her own family. So the defense declares that Kaylee drowned in the family's swimming pool and that a controlling George Anthony helped cover it up. They insisted that this was an accident, not a murder, and that the defense did a great job of really hammering it home that unless the jury was sure without a single degree of reasonable doubt, she should not be guilty. They even put up a visual graph of everything that would warrant a not guilty verdict, all the way up to strongly believe was not guilty.
So the defense is trying to say that she died in a pool?
Yeah, the defense says...
Then why was she dumped in the woods?
Exactly. I don't know. Their argument was that George made her cover it up. But that still doesn't say why.
So did anybody get arrested on this whole deal?
No.
So regardless, they're saying, hey, she was murdered.
Yeah, they're saying she died. They're not saying that she was murdered. They're saying it was an accident.
Though, okay, but if you covered it up, there's a problem.
Yeah. I mean...
This doesn't even make sense.
No, it really doesn't. But that wasn't one of the charges. The destruction of a corpse, that was not a charge. So, I mean, maybe they could have gotten her on that had it been on the list. But they didn't even include that.
Doesn't make sense.
I know. Nothing does. So, at the end of the day, there was no scientific evidence that Casey and Casey alone was the one who caused Kaylee's death because nobody could even answer with scientific proof how Kaylee died, when, where, and by who. There was no scientific evidence. Even though common sense tells you absolutely Casey did it, but common sense does not equal scientific evidence.
Well, even if common sense tells you Casey did it, which I believe that.
Yes.
Common sense, okay, go take some common sense out of it. Common sense still tells you they hid the body and somebody was involved in something sketchy.
Yeah.
And nobody was charged.
Nobody. So after closing arguments, the jury took 10 hours to reach a verdict. And I remember where I was at work, and I was working for an eye doctor at the time, and they had a TV like in the waiting area. And I was standing up watching because I knew this was the day. I was like, they're gonna announce it today. I'm watching. And they said, not guilty on everything except for lying to the police. And the public was completely outraged. I remember my jaw dropping, my hands coming to my head like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. This bitch is gonna walk free for killing her daughter. I was blown away. Like, I had spent so much time watching the interviews that she did with her parents while she was in jail, and just like the narcissism. She just seeped with narcissism. It was so painful to watch, and I'm just like, I cannot wait to watch this bitch go down.
Like, she's still on, I'm trying to Instagram her right now.
She's not going to be on any social media. No, absolutely not. So
there's going to be some meme pages or something.
Oh, I'm sure. But the public was completely outraged.
Gosh, look at this little cute girl.
I know. She's adorable.
That's so crazy.
I know. It's awful. So she was sentenced to 4 years in prison for lying to the police, but with credit for time served and good behavior, she was released 10 days later after her trial was over.
Gosh, this is Casey Anthony as a teenager with her father, George. The two are now estranged and don't have a regular communication anymore.
Yeah, I mean, can you blame him?
This is so weird.
So now Casey Anthony is just living life somewhere in Florida, we assume, but she's been living in hiding.
Is she in like witness protection?
No, they don't do witness protection for people like pieces of shit.
Would, but
no,
this is already such shit.
No, they do that for victims. They do that for.
Casey Anthony in 2017, a paparazzi shot in Florida.
Yeah.
So she still goes by Casey Anthony?
Yes, and since then she's even done interviews. She's done interviews where someone asked her, "So what do you think happened to Kaylee?" And she says, "I don't know. I really don't know." And it's like, you don't know? Your defense claimed that she drowned in a pool and that your dad made you get rid of her. How can you now say you don't know? Like, that just proves again you were lying. It makes me so angry.
This is a frustrating case.
Yeah, it's
Here's
so
Casey
frustrating.
Anthony at an anti-Trump rally in Palm Beach, Florida in 2016.
Oh, geez.
What the heck?
I don't think she has the right to be anti-anything at this point, because I think the entire world is anti-Casey. She was like dubbed the most hated woman in America.
How could she not be? This is nuts.
I know.
Now I see why you say you were frustrated about it.
Yes, it was so frustrating because she just got away with it. She freaking got away with it. And now there's been no justice. No one else has been charged. And it's just, the case is closed.
This is wild.
Yeah. So what this case has taught me is that you can get away with murder as long as you play your cards right, and that the justice system.
That's what it's taught you, huh?
Yeah.
That's scary.
And that the justice
woman who just watches the shit out of crime stuff all the time.
A little bit of snapped. And that the justice system is riddled with flaws that allow monsters to get away with the most deplorable acts by disallowing common sense in the courtroom. That's my conclusion.
Oh, it's nuts. Well, she's guilty, and
it's really like messed up though when you think about it. Like, that's our justice
system. I'm
system.
sitting here looking at pictures of her daughter. This is wild.
But I mean, this isn't an isolated incident. Like, this tells you this can happen in any case, as long as a defense attorney can place seeds of doubt in juries' minds and play strictly to the rules that the only way you can come up with a guilty verdict is if you have absolute proof. Well, that's shitty, because if a defense attorney is manipulative enough and to like brainwash the jury, then all it takes is either one person to say, well, I don't know, I'm with the prosecuting attorneys, or everyone, in this case, everyone, he was able to manipulate everyone into believing that Casey didn't do it. He made them go against their common sense and their gut and their instinct.
So you're...
it's insane.
So you I think you said this already, but where's the Tony guy?
Oh, so he ended up having nothing to do with it, but he was pretty floored. And he hasn't done any interviews since. Like, I wasn't able to find any, at least. I've seen a lot of interviews with the roommates who remembered Kaylee as like a very sweet and loving, smart girl. She could count to 20 in English and Spanish at the age of 2 or 3, like a very, very young age. And they thought of Casey as like a cool chick, and now they're like, now I just believe she's a liar. Like, I mean, how can you not?
That's wild.
Mm-hmm.
Well, good job, Mama Mystery.
Thank you. I want to thank you for listening, and I want to thank my fiance for joining me. Thanks, Austin. Maybe I'll bring you on next time. Do you think you'll do another one with me?
Sure, this was wild.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. I only do the wild ones. Until next time, stay vigilant, and thanks for listening.